This video is brought to you by Ghost in the Shell First Assault.
Lots of theories about Mercy. She is definitely not an immortal vampire.
Mercy is described as a guardian angel to those who come under her care, a peerless healer and advocate for peace. But is that the whole story? Is there more to Mercy's tale than healing and protection? Is Mercy evil? The idea of Mercy's nefarious past was first made public by Overwatch Reddit user OG Paper in a very popular thread you can find linked in the description. Since then, it's been picked up and discussed repeatedly, so we decided it was time to investigate and see if Mercy really is the angel she appears to be.
I'm no angel.
Let's start by looking at the name of Mercy's weapon, the Caduceus staff. That isn't some new word invented by Blizzard, it dates back potentially as far as 4000 BC. Throughout its history, the Caduceus staff has been depicted as part of many faiths and often has strong links with the dead, be it easing the pain of the dying as they pass on, guiding the dead to their eternal resting place, or even bringing the dead back to life. Other associations with the staff include commerce, gambling, liars, and thieves. In more recent times, the symbol has been incorrectly adopted by many healthcare organizations, which confused it with the rod of Asclepius, which is one historically associated with healing and medicine. The second interesting name in Mercy's equipment is her armor. The Valkyrie suit was created and presumably named by Mercy herself. Valkyries come from the Norse mythology and they choose who will die and who will live in battle. They then escort the dead to Valhalla, the afterlife. So we have two parts of Mercy's equipment named in a way that connects them to death and dealing with people after they've died rather than healing and keeping them alive. Now it could be that Blizzard made the same mistake when naming the staff. In the world today, the image of the Caduceus staff is widely used to represent healthcare, but you would expect a simple Google search of the name before putting it in the game. If they knew that the Caduceus was only mistakenly used as a medical symbol and it actually was linked to necromancy, lying, and trade, could this have been the first hint at Mercy's darker side? Along with the Valkyrie suit, it's certainly an interesting proposition, and this drove us to take a closer look. Next, we took a look at the factual lore about Mercy. Her parents died during a war, and she became a doctor with a focus on nanobiology, essentially restoring tissue at a cellular level using tiny robots. She gets picked up by Overwatch, and although she disagreed with many of their methods, she headed up their medical division. Since Overwatch fell, she's been spending her time in war-torn countries caring for those that need help. Now, interestingly, this is the only well-documented case of Mercy operating on someone in the game's lore. After an altercation with his brother, Genji was left on the verge of death. As far as Hanzo was concerned, he'd murdered him, so we can assume that it was not pretty. He was found by Overwatch and transformed into his current form by Mercy. Genji is a cyborg, and while he claims to still have the heart and presumably mind of a man, his body is mainly made up of machine. At first, it may seem like Genji was rescued by Mercy, but what was the purpose behind his rescue? A quote from Genji's backstory tells us more. Overwatch offered to rebuild his body in exchange for his help. Genji was part of the Shimada crime family, and while he refused to take an active role in the organization, he would still have useful information, and after the fight with his brother, a good reason to want revenge. Overwatch gave Genji a choice: die or help us destroy your family. So this raises the question, where did Mercy stand on this kind of blackmail? We can't know for sure either way, but we do know that Mercy didn't simply just save Genji outright and give him a new body. She turned him into effectively a killing machine. Even Genji himself was repulsed by what he'd become, and after the mission was complete, he left Overwatch and drifted for many years. It wasn't until he crossed paths with Zenyatta that Genji would find inner peace. Now, Genji seems to hold no grudge against Mercy and has friendly dialogue with her with the rest of the Overwatch agents, which seems at odds with the story of abandoning the organization as soon as his mission was over. Perhaps this is a result of Zenyatta's tutelage and he has forgiven them. However, Genji does seem to be part of the team in this photo, taken during what appears to be Winston's acceptance into Overwatch, so maybe he didn't blame Mercy or the rest of Overwatch for what they turned him into after all. Many of those who believe Mercy to be evil also think she operated on another member of the Overwatch cast, Reaper. The idea stemmed from two voice lines. The first of these included Reaper saying, "You knew exactly what you were doing." However, this was actually misquoted across the internet and was confirmed recently by Michael Chu that it never actually existed in the game. The second voice line some believe to also be suspicious goes like this.
What happened to you?
You tell me, Doc.
With the two lines together, it certainly would sound like Mercy operated on Reaper. However, the first one disproved, and listening to the second as an isolated piece of dialogue, I don't think there is anything particularly suspicious here. However, someone must have acted to turn Reaper into his current form after he was caught in the blast that destroyed the Overwatch Swiss headquarters. Mercy would have likely been nearby, as a base of operations is listed as Zurich, Switzerland, so we know she has the means and likely the opportunity. But what would be her motive? If she did operate on Reaper, did she mean to make this monster, or did things just simply go wrong and he turned and was evil and she couldn't save him in that sense? This quote from Reaper's lore shed some light on what the operation entailed. It was speculated that Reaper was a byproduct of a failed genetic alteration which forced his cells to simultaneously decay and regenerate at a hyper-accelerated rate. Mercy's healing powers are based in the use of nanobionics, minuscule machines that work at a cellular level to regenerate tissue. A very similar technology could have been used on Reaper and continues to rebuild his decaying cells in an ongoing cycle. If it was Mercy who operated, maybe she was doing the right thing and trying to save a fellow Overwatch member, but perhaps this was an opportunity to test some of her more radical ideas. Could there be another motive for her to operate on Reaper? Well, if it was possible to regenerate cells at an accelerated rate and stabilize them, you could essentially stop death in any form, potentially even from old age. Maybe Mercy's goal wasn't to find a way to save people, but rather to find a way to stop death entirely. Perhaps an idea inspired by the deaths of her parents, and this raises a new question: does Mercy herself age? Let's compare her to the rest of the cast. Mercy's 37 years old, 11 years older than Tracer, 9 years older than Zarya, 4 years older than Widowmaker. Now, maybe makeup can do some serious wonders in the future, but she doesn't look a day older than the members of the cast. And then there are some interesting voice interactions with Mei.
Mei, you haven't aged a day. What's your secret?
Cryostasis, but I'm not sure if I'd recommend it. Dr. Ziegler, I don't think you've aged a day since I last saw you.
And neither have you, Mei.
Mercy clearly has an interest in Mei not aging, and Mei even mentions that Mercy doesn't seem to have aged a day in the years since they have last seen each other. Now, to stop the aging process, Mercy would have had to tamper with her very cells and found a way to let her regenerate new tissue throughout her body, and that brings us to Reaper and his ever-decaying and regenerating cells. Could Mercy have found a way to regenerate cells beyond her normal healing capabilities, and could an incorrect performed version of this procedure warped Reaper into the being he is today? Perhaps she could have used a perfected version of the experiment to stop herself from growing old. Mercy and Reaper are both able to see the souls of the dead, the only two characters to do so. Mercy will also naturally regenerate health as if her body can repair itself. She's the only character to do this without the use of some form of ability, although of course Reaper can regain health by consuming souls. So now we are left with the big question: is Mercy evil? It seems fair to say her actions have always been to save people no matter what the cost, but perhaps she has become obsessed with stopping death. Does she quest for a way to stop herself from aging and the ends justify the means? Is it a fear of death or simply for vanity? Did she operate on Reaper with unethical practices? Could Genji have been the first step on a dark path to stopping death, an idea that maybe drove Mercy to become a doctor in the first place after the death of her parents? Let us know what you think in the comments below. I'm not completely convinced myself, but it's certainly an interesting question, and I really want to see what you guys think. This has been Dash for Curse saying thanks for watching and enjoy the game. This video was brought to you by Ghost in the Shell First Assault. Play the open beta now on Steam. To find out more about this game, check out the videos on the left or visit firstassaultgame.com.